Well, Arizona State just continues to get those signature victories. Now 5-1 on the season with a victory by one score over the Utah Utes. Some kind of victory, Colby Bronstein. This was the night of the Kenny Dillingham era. Feels like we're saying that every week now.
Absolutely, and the first storming of the field since 2022, and that game was at 12:30. Also during fall break weekend, which every student now is going to be able to enjoy this weekend. And boy, what a long night / early morning it's going to be for everybody celebrating this victory. But well-deserved on ASU's part, and Kenny Dillingham coached an absolutely brilliant game.
We'll start with the news from earlier this week. Cam Rising played in the game. He didn't look anything like Cam Rising, and Kenny Dillingham acknowledged that. I think everyone on the field got to see that. Cam Rising is not 100%. That couldn't have been made more clear tonight. There were a lot of throws that were easy little 5-6 yard passes he just didn't make.
Yeah, Cam Rising had 3 interceptions. He had none on the season before that, and yes, he had some time off due to injury, but as he mentioned, he didn't look like himself. And he's a guy that also has the running ability and can have a threat on the ground, and that wasn't really a factor at all for him when the passing game really couldn't get going. And then how about on the defensive end for ASU? Caleb McCullough, 2 interceptions. He's a guy that mentioned in the post-game press conference that he's been waiting for his opportunity, and boy, did he take advantage and live up to the moment tonight.
Yeah, Caleb McCullough, we can talk about him a little bit because Kenny Dillingham talked about him a lot. He's a guy that has been through multiple, not just, there's a lot of guys on this team that went through last year and went through the 3-9 season. Caleb's done it twice, including 2 years ago when they fired a head coach, and it was even arguably worse than it was last year. He's a guy who's waited his turn through multiple coaches. On his third coach, finally gets a chance after targeting last week. Couple of guys not even available to play. By chance, he gets an opportunity, and he really used it tonight.
You mentioned by chance, but he always stays ready, and he, again, lived up to the moment tonight. 2 interceptions, including the game-sealing one late in the fourth quarter, and that was really the momentum that ASU needed. And offensively for Sam Levitt and company, 11 for 18, he went down. And he threw 1 interception, but he threw 1 touchdown as well to his good buddy in Jordan Tyson, and they've really been building some chemistry. He hasn't been relied on as much of a passer recently, but he hasn't really had to be relied on, and that's really because of Cam Scadaboo. Again, an outstanding performance, just under 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 highlight reel plays of a rush of over 40 yards for a score.
You mentioned the injury. He went down in the second quarter, didn't come back till about 30 seconds left in the half. Seems like he'll be okay for next week, and obviously they go from a short week to a long week. They'll have the weekend. Kenny said it is voluntary. They are allowed to come in this weekend to practice, but many guys will take the weekend off. The injury really forced the defense to step up. We got to see Jeff Sims for the first time, and he looked okay. About what you would want from your second string quarterback. Certainly shows that I suppose he is a viable backup. It's not like last year where if somebody goes down, Cam Scadaboo has to play quarterback. But we got to see Jeff Sims, and the other side of that was you had the injury, and he looks to be okay for next week. But the defense stepped up, did its part, locked down the end of that first half where it was a 1-score game. They could have lost that lead going to the locker room.
Yeah, and that's 2 straight weeks now with game-winning touchdowns. Really when it mattered the most in crunch time. Last week with 16 seconds left, Jordan Tyson on the other end of a touchdown from Sam Levitt. And then this time around, Cam Scadaboo rumbling for 47 yards on a touchdown. He had already gone for 50+ and a touchdown. And in terms of the injuries, and to Sam Levitt especially, he's an absolute dog, and he was able to get up off the ground. He said in his post-game presser that he was struggling to breathe a little bit and more of getting the wind knocked out of him and maybe a little bit of his shoulder getting roughed up as well, but he came back when he was needed. And for Jeff Sims, he was able to get into the end zone using his legs, and that's really what ASU needed in terms of getting points early on and trying to maintain that lead, and they were obviously able to come up on top in the end.
And Cam Scadaboo, RB1, comes in at the end, gets 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter that couldn't have been bigger, ends the game. There was an interception actually down here that ended the game. Just a tremendous, there's no one you can really single out in that fourth quarter because everybody stepped up, everybody did their job. The offense got the scores, the defense got the stops, and it resulted in a huge win.
It was a huge win, and also in front of a massive crowd. Not necessarily the sold-out crowd last week of 54,000 plus, but man, did the student section as well as the ASU faithful show out. And hey, potentially we could see them in the top 25 next week. I think they're worthy of that considering 2 straight wins, one against Kansas last week and a ranked opponent today in Utah. That also I want to mention quickly, was in the preseason projected to be the #1 team in the Big 12. ASU projected in last place. They completely flipped the script of what the media thought was going to be. Again, just an incredible victory for ASU at home, knocking off a ranked opponent in Utah.
Should get them into the top 25 next week, probably between 20 and 25.
Yeah, and that's an incredible feat for Arizona State. Again, considering
Second year
yes,
under Kenny Dillingham.
Yes, the second year under Kenny Dillingham, and there was so much turmoil in what occurred before him, and it had nothing to do with Kenny Dillingham, and he just came in. And there was a question also mentioned in the post-game presser saying, normally in terms of taking around a program with that much turmoil, it could take 3 or 4 years. Kenny Dillingham has done that in a span of about 17 or 18 months. It's incredible, and he's just the man for the job, especially because he grew up in the state of Arizona. He has so much passion for this program in terms of football here at Arizona State, but also the school as a whole. This is where he went to school, he did not play football, and he's just been working his way up consistently, and all the praise goes to Kenny Dillingham and everybody under him. And this team really has so much firepower, and it looks like that it's going to thrust them into the top 25 for the first time in the Kenny Dillingham era.
Sun Devils win the game. That's Kobe Bronstein. I'm Aiden Blank. We'll talk to you next at home almost a month from now when Arizona State faces Central Florida. New opponent coming in, likely the first time that they've met. Should be a very fun one. Couple more home games here, and then you're looking into postseason play. But that's our House of Sparky recap for tonight. Arizona State, a win over Utah, the first ranked win in the Kenny Dillingham era.